All right, everybody. Welcome back to the Mainly Hoops podcast. We've got some more Big 12 content for you guys, covering the transfer portal, of course, where we've got BYU next we're covering. We'll hop right into it. Marcus, what are your thoughts on the BYU offseason moves?
For anyone that's listened to anything we've put out so far, BYU is, I think, going to be very, 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 very dangerous, especially after their addition of Rob Wright. They kind of poached him last minute, right? For anyone that followed that situation at all with Baylor, like Baylor was fully expecting Rob Wright back, and that is why they didn't go after some guys that they could have gone after in the portal, because they fully expected him back. And then all of a sudden, like, he enters the portal, and like 2 days later, he's committed to BYU for $4 million. Lucky for BYU, this is like a dream situation for them, I think. Like, perfect fit. You've now got Rob Wright, who can create, he can get downhill, and you've got guys around him that can play. I mean, you're going to obviously AJ DeBanza is the headliner, but like Richie Saunders, now some weight's going to be lifted off of him, and he was fantastic last season. But now with DeBanza there, it's going to be a little bit of a relief for him, but he's still going to be great. Just a little bit less eyes on him. They have on the defensive end, they got Cody coming back. As physical as they come, that guy literally looks like he was like chiseled. It's crazy. And then Dawson Baker, of course, he's another key returner. Boscovich, they have guys. And not to mention, like, Kevin Young is one of my favorite coaches in the country. So I think that like three-headed monster of Rob Wright really running the offense, and then DeBanza, Richie Saunders putting up, a large chunk of the points. But to be honest, I really think that a lot of guys, you could put a bunch of guys in that situation with Kevin Young, and we could maybe score 10 points a game. I mean, it feels like these guys get fantastic shots. And now having Rob Wright orchestrate all that, I'm super, super excited for BYU.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited about the Rob Wright move. Obviously, I know you've been super high on Rob Wright even early at Baylor.
Yeah.
Last season, I think, his game popped right away to you. I saw it a little bit later in the season. I mean, he's everything that this offense was kind of missing last year. They didn't really have many issues on the offensive end. They were like a top 5 offense in the country when it was all said and done. But I think when the game slows down in the half court for them, they're obviously still going to be a little bit more transition reliant, trying to, hit some open threes in transition. But to have Rob Wright, the kind of a pick and roll creator in a half court setting, he can really manipulate the pick and roll better than like any of the younger guards that I've seen. And in year 2, I think we could expect even more of a leap. His ability to just get into the lane and then make a decision once he gets into the lane. Like, he has the option to, with his lob threat in Kevaketa, but he also has 4 or 3 other shooters around him, I guess, in the projected starting lineup with like Baker, DeBonsta, and Saunders right now. And then obviously they brought in depth pieces in Kennard Davis, Tyler Russ, and Nate Pickens that can all shoot it a little bit too. I don't know how much of a role Russ and Pickens are going to play, but Kennard Davis is going to come off the bench. He's probably going to be, a secondary guard playing like a 15 to 20 minute per game role. But yeah, obviously Rob Wright is a really good move for Kevin Young and this BYU team. I'm not sure he was worth $4 million, because I'm a little bit worried about his overall scoring ability, especially inside the arc. And if his 3-point game doesn't come along a little bit more, he shot at 35% on pretty low volume. Most of his shots came with open looks. He didn't really take a ton of contested looks, struggled a bit with his mid-range creation, but I just think his ability to get into the lane in a half-court setting, he does have creativity around the rim as well. But to create more open looks for this BYU team that already got some pretty decent ones, but they had to take a few more guarded ones than they would have liked last season. I think the ceiling for this offense is the best offense in the entire country.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think Kennard Davis is a good get. He had a big jump last year, shooting the three anyway. I think he went up like almost 8% from beyond the arc on more volume. So I think that's a good get for them off the bench. Like Dawson Garcia, as I already mentioned, coming back, he can shoot it. And I think they retooled very well from what they lost, right? They had some guys run out of eligibility. They had some guys leaving the portal. From what it sounded like Cannon Catchings was probably a good thing he was gone. It sounded like he was maybe a little bit of a locker room problem there. So I think that if you're a BYU fan, you should be pretty excited about the moves that have been made. Maybe not the dollar amount spent, because it's a big number. Unless you win it all, of course, which then you're probably like, okay, it is worth it. But I'm not sure. They're a fun team to watch. I don't know if they're ready to win it all with this team. I don't know how you feel about them in that realm, Cody.
I wish they added another perimeter defender. I know Kennard Davis can kind of he has some 3-and-D qualities, and he adds the athleticism on the wing. He's more of a big guard than he is a 3. He's 6'6", 215. Can take the responsibility of guarding the other team's best perimeter option. He's not elite by any means, but I think he can be rock solid in a 15 to 20 minute per game role. And I guess it will kind of depend on how engaged Devonsta is going to be on the defensive end with all the offensive responsibility he's going to have. We just need to see if he can keep the energy on the defensive side. And I mean, it could depend on, Xavion Staten, the freshman 4-star, how he is on the back line, playing the depth minutes when Kebakate is on the bench. Overall, I didn't like this defense really at all last season. I think Kevin Young kind of masked the issues, playing a more rim denial scheme, put less responsibility on the perimeter defenders. Probably going to be a similar type situation. I do think the defense improved because I do think the length of Devonsta on the wing is really going to help. Saunders is going to be able to exert a little bit more energy on the wing. He's a decent athlete for his size, being 6'5", guarding on the wing. So I don't hate the defense as much as I did last year, but they're still a little bit capped upside wise because they have to play a certain scheme to really be great, and that's more of a rim denial scheme. They can't really put a lot of responsibility on their perimeter defenders to guard in space for 40 minutes. So I wish they added one more piece there. I think Pickens can be a piece. I don't think he's going to be a guy that's going to play any more than 10 to 15 minutes on this team, but he plays much bigger than his 6'3" frame. He's probably got a 6'8", 6'9" wingspan. He's a really good perimeter shot defender. So I don't hate the pieces. I just think they could have used a more needle moving defender on the perimeter with apparently the unlimited money they had. I think they could have gone out and got one.
Yeah, no, they definitely could use that. But I think, maybe Kevin Young just trusts what he's got. Or maybe they just ran out of money. I don't know.
Probably not.
Which based on what they spent on Debanza and Rob Wright alone, that's more than most teams are spending on their team, their entire team for a season. So who knows?
What would we say ceiling and the floor is for this BYU team?
Ceiling's a title if they get hot. Mm-hmm. Obviously, this is the best offense in the country. I guess just off the top of my head, I can't really think of a more talented offensive roster at this point in time, especially when you add Rob Wright. The floor, they could lose in the first round. I just don't really think the defense is all that great. And if they're going to play this, rim denial scheme and give up some unguarded threes that they don't really want to give up at a high volume, like you looked at the game last year against Alabama, they truly got exposed on the defensive side. Alabama got every single open look that they wanted from three. I don't think they've improved all that much on that side. So I would say the floor is, they're going to make the tournament. Obviously they're going to be fine. They're going to be a top 5 to 6 seed, probably at the worst. So, But yeah, I will say there's a chance they lose in the first round.
Yeah, I would just kind of echo that. I think the ceiling is as high as anyone can get. That's a title, and they could just as easily not be great defensively and end up in that like 5, 6 seed, 7 seed maybe again if they kind of struggle through Big 12 play and end up in a tough first round game and get bounced maybe. I don't know. I would like to think that their floor is one tournament win. I would like to think, but you just never know.
Right. Awesome. Any
Yeah,
final
once you get to that point, it's matchup dependent, so we can't really speculate any of that stuff. But yeah, I think their floor is higher than where they were last year as a 6 seed. I think it's probably a 5 seed.
Right on. Awesome. Well, we'll wrap things up. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll be back with some more Big 12 content.